Story 1. So for context, I have a lot of mental issues tied with anxiety and pressure. When I get too overstimulated, I start to twitch, stutter, say intrusive thoughts out loud, hum and shake. I was currently working at a popular fast food place. Before I had started working, I informed my boss and my managers about this and got permission to listen to music during work since I worked at the fry station. The orders on the fry station came up on a little screen, and I didn't really have to communicate with anyone as long as I was fast enough to get the orders through before they needed to ask. Normally, I would work with a pair of Bluetooth earbuds in, just loud enough to barely hear what was going on just in case I'd have to listen. However, these two girls I worked near would loudly talk about me, assuming that I couldn't hear. It was the normal stuff that I usually heard at work. Why does she get to listen to music and we don't? She must be their favorite, etc. Classic witch stuff. One day, however, I realized that I had accidentally left my earbuds at home. My manager that day was really sweet, but we were short-staffed, and I didn't want to ask to go home and grab them. I also didn't have the guts to ask anyone if they had something I could borrow. So, I decided to toughen it out and work my shift without them. Being in the kitchen without music was loud, and the two girls gossiping really didn't help. I was starting to shake and hum already, however, since this was the first time they had ever gotten to really talk to me during work. They jumped on the opportunity. We had a conversation that went something like this. Please keep in mind that I do stutter through this, especially on S and TH sounds. Hey, can I ask a personal question? One of those witches asks me. Shoot. What makes you so special that you can listen to music on earbuds, but we can't even play it out loud on our phones? I do fries and I don't like talking. You don't do fries and you do like talking. Are you saying we talk too much? The other witch asked. No, I'm saying I don't like talking and I don't have to talk to you to do my job. I just think it's funny how you get to. I found myself cutting her off and saying, witch, to her face. Excuse me? What did you just call her? My manager walked in and heard the last bit at this point. Don't mind her, she can't help it. She's never done this before, look at her. She's acting like this to get out of work early since she doesn't have her special needs music today. That's really uncalled for, the manager told her. Wet paint, I suddenly said. We just want to know why she would work here if she's just going to act disabled. I'm a college student on her own. I need a job to get wet paint food. Are you just insert the R word? Why don't you go on disability or something? At this point, my manager gets really mad and yells at them to stop. I'm breathing really heavy and am on the verge of a panic attack, so she takes me to the freezer in the back and hands me a bag of liquid ice cream to squish. We've previously talked about how I enjoy the weird bag feeling and thought they were fun to hold. She also has a brother with similar problems to mine, and new sensory stimulation is helpful to some. I don't know why squish ice cream bags are funny, but it is. She leaves and comes back a few minutes later and tells me that I can clock out for the night and not to worry about them. So I do. The next night I came back and the first witch was put on a week-long suspension and the second one was fired as it was her final strike for causing workplace drama. Story 2. Warning, there is no hero in this story. A guy was a jerk to me, and I was a bigger jerk back. Honestly, I probably went too far. One day I got a sales call from this company I'm investing with, trying to sell me more investment. Wasn't against it, so I let the sales guy talk, asked my questions, then told him I wasn't interested once it became obvious it wasn't what I wanted. This guy was persistent though. He kept asking why I wasn't interested, then told me he was going to email me a bunch of documentation to help me make my decision. So he emails me some stuff that I don't read, and calls me again the next day. I tried to politely tell him that this was a waste of both of our time, but then it got weird. Let's call the guy Jack. Did you even read any of the stuff I sent you yesterday? No, like I told you, I'm not interested. So you're a liar then. Excuse me. He went on to complain because, according to him, I'd told him I was going to invest in his offer. but then pulled out at the last minute. I told him I didn't say anything of the sort. I simply let him make his pitch, then told him I wasn't interested. Just because he pushes and follows up against my will doesn't magically change any of this. Secondly, this call is crazy unprofessional. How are you going to survive in sales if you start yelling at everyone who says no to you? The call gets really heated at this point. I think my guy was holding in some serious frustration because he unloaded a bunch of insults on me in a wildly disproportionate way. In response, I start needling and insulting him back, infuriating him further, culminating in him reading my address over the phone to intimidate me and making threats about how he's going to come over and kill me. It wasn't my address, it was my office address, but the intent was there. I was pissed after this, and, not being able to let it go, I weighed my options. Sending in a complaint was the easiest option and would almost certainly have led to him getting punished for it. But it was also way too formal and impersonal. For the sake of my ego, I needed the satisfaction of actually delivering a personal blow. So, knowing what offices and sales teams are like, I decide to embarrass him. I run my own business, and we send a lot of cold emails. As such, I have access to a bunch of tools and processes to gather email addresses from a given business domain. I get to work, find about 60 company emails, and bulk send the following email to everyone on this list, except for Jack. Hi there, I'm trying to reach Jack in sales. Please forward this to him if you know him, as I don't have his email. Hi Jack, just following up on our phone call from earlier today. The one where you called me a lying idiot and a son of a witch because I didn't want to give you money. Then read out my address over the phone and threatened to kill me. I know it's frustrating when you don't make a sale, but whining about it and insulting the lead isn't going to help you. Here's a YouTube link where I uploaded a recording of your rant for your convenience. Link. I thought maybe you can go through it and learn how to control your emotions better in future. Thanks. Note: please don't read this or view the link if you're not Jack in sales. I timed the email to hit everyone's inbox around 8 a.m. This way it would be at the top of everyone's inbox as they started their day, and there wouldn't be any time for anyone higher up to become aware of the email and wipe it from everyone's inboxes before it's seen, just in case that was a possibility. Over the next 24 hours, I got a bunch of emails from random people asking if the recording is real. A couple from people saying they can't believe he said that stuff, another death threat from Jack, and an urgent message from my regular account manager asking if I can please set up a time for a call to discuss my recent experience. Also, the YouTube upload had almost 100 views. Ha! Story 3. About a year ago, we went to Mexico to get my husband's dog. I had deliberately booked a direct flight from Mexico City to Chicago because the poor pup had to travel in the luggage compartment. I wanted to go up once, be in the air for 4 hours, come down once, and take her straight outside for a bathroom break, especially since she had never flown before. We also had to hand her over to the airline, sealed in her crate, 2.5 hours before our flight even boarded. But, as the saying goes, the best laid plans often go awry. The only flight that worked for us, both in terms of timing and cost, was on one of the budget Mexican airlines, which, if you've never tried, I honestly recommend. I actually enjoy flying on those budget carriers. It's inexpensive and oddly entertaining. They have advertisements on the baggage compartment covers, like you'd see on a subway or a bus, and everyone brings full meals with them since they even charge for water. In my experience, the passengers are usually in good spirits. However, I won't repeat this particular flight, because they had packed so many extra seats into that plane that it unexpectedly weighed too much. As a result, we had to make an unplanned stop in a northern Mexican city to refuel. So, our flight that was supposed to land in Chicago around midnight ended up arriving closer to 3 o'clock in the morning. We went through immigration fairly quickly since we were the only flight landing at that time. My husband was traveling on an immigration document known as advance parole, and I'm a United States citizen, so they separated us at the border. I had to wait in the baggage claim area by myself. Pretty much the entire plane load of passengers was standing around waiting again and again and again, trapped in that strange, in between space between immigration and customs. I suppose the baggage handlers have a shift change at 3 a.m., or maybe only 2 people worked that late night shift, because we waited at least 45 minutes before any bags came down the ramp. Despite being the only flight arriving at that hour, the luggage trickled out in slow, uneven bursts like a leaky faucet struggling to flow. I was standing off to the side, waiting for them to bring our dog through the oversized baggage door, when I noticed this woman walking by with her tiny dog. She was one of those women who looked effortlessly glamorous, long manicured nails, perfect hair, even at nearly 4 in the morning. Her little fluff ball of a dog trotted proudly beside her on a jeweled leash. There were clear signs posted everywhere saying that animals had to remain inside their carriers, but she had taken her small dog out and was parading him around, leading him to corners and nearby spots like the rental cart rail, encouraging him to relieve himself. She spent a lot of time near where I and another man were waiting for oversized baggage and animals, probably because there were fewer people in that area. Still, she made several laps around the perimeter 3 or 4 times at least. Finally, on her 4th or 5th loop, an airport security officer approached her. He looked like he was 1 cup of coffee away from a high blood pressure episode and told her firmly to put her dog back in the carrier. She began explaining that the flight had been so long and her precious little companion couldn't possibly be expected to hold it any longer. She insisted that it wasn't her fault they were stuck waiting for her bags, and she didn't want her poor dog to suffer. The airport security officer repeated that she needed to place the dog back inside the carrier. She tried again to argue, saying it was unfair and that her dog needed a break. The officer pointed at one of the signs and instructed her once more to pack up her dog. Instead of listening, she huffed, turned her back, and walked away, continuing to let her dog wander around and attempt to relieve himself in various corners. I had nothing better to do and was glad for the distraction since I was already anxious about what was taking my husband so long. So, I watched as the airport security officer walked toward the doors leading to customs and returned with another officer, this one wearing a different uniform and a pair of handcuffs on his belt. They caught up with a woman when she was halfway across the baggage claim area. I could see her gesturing wildly and shaking her head. Her voice grew louder, though I couldn't make out the exact words as she pointed at her dog, and then toward the empty luggage belt. Finally, the second officer reached behind him and pulled out the handcuffs. At that moment, she quickly bent down, scooped her dog into his carrier, and appeared to listen quietly as they spoke to her for a bit longer. Eventually, the officers walked away and returned to their usual posts. Right around that time, both my dog and my husband were released from the long border inspection process through different doors, though so I lost track of her after that. But honestly, judging by her attitude, I'm sure that if she had gotten her way, she would have left her little dog's mess right there in the middle of the floor for everyone else to step in, just like the person from that other story. Story 4. First off, I'm 15 in German. Characters: entitled mother, entitled kid, entitled kid's dad who was nice and understood the scene from an objective perspective. There's also me, my classmates and dad. The school system. To understand what is going on, we first must know how the German school system works. When you finish kindergarten, you get to elementary school. It goes on until the 4th grade, and then at the 5th one you can choose between the gymnasium, for the children with the best grades, Realschule, for the children with okay grades, and the Hauptschule, which is for those with the worst grades. This goes on at the gymnasium until the 12th grade, and then you can do another grade, which is mostly there for people who want to study, but almost everyone does it. Oh, and until the 10th grade, everyone has the same subjects. Backstory. As I got into 1st grade, I got a new best friend, the entitled kid of the story. He lived on my street, and we got along pretty well. But I am a special child. I am interested in many different subjects, and I'm quite good at them. Also, I'm pretty smart and mature, and was it pretty early. The entitled kid was not. To this day, he seems more like an 8-year-old, so we played often, and at some point he used to come to my place every day and ask if I could play, mostly soccer with him. And don't get me wrong, I love this sport. But at some point he came and rang the bell. I would come outside and play and go home at 6 p.m., and then he would come back later and ask me if I wanted to play again. Of course, I said no, and sometimes I even said it when he came in at noon. Then we got into 5th grade and switched schools. It was in another small town than our village was. I quickly got new friends, but still sat next to him in every subject. Then it happened. The stuff about to go down. Our 63-year-old teacher said we could work together, but you must not. I, who hate group work at school, grabbed my pen and started writing. The entitled kid is not a very smart kid, so he just did something I hated. He started copying. Me, could you stop that? Entitled kid, why? Well, she said you can work in groups, but you don't have to, and she definitely didn't say copy your neighbor's work. We are working together. No, we are not, and I really don't want to. But you must. Who said that? The teacher. No, she didn't. I'm going to ask her when she comes back. She left the room to print some stuff. Entitled kid, hey classmate, do we have to work together? Classmate, no, you don't. The entitled kid was clearly upset, but he stopped arguing. 10 minutes later, he started copying again. Me, could you stop that please? If you don't want to work with me, I'll make you do it. The kid grabbed his pen and started stabbing me. It hurt, but I am not someone who starts screaming because of everything, so I made no noise. Worst of all was that we were in the back of the class, separated from anyone so no one saw it, and the teacher was still gone. He didn't kill me or bring me to a state where it would be possible, but it still hurt and the pen was in my leg. Finally, the teacher came in and I tried to ask for help, but as soon as she entered, the entitled kid pointed his pen at my leg and said, "One word and I'll stab you again." So I made not a single noise. On the way home, he also stole my phone, but the bus driver said if he didn't give it back, he would kick him out. I thanked him for that. Back at home, I showed it to my father, who got furious and drove with me to their house and showed his father, who was the only one of his parents at home at this moment. The entitled kid immediately started to cry. He punched me in the face in front of the whole class. His dad, so if I call anyone, they can approve this. The kid started to cry louder. My dad, I guess that means no. The whole conversation went like this, but I don't want to write all that down. The entitled kid's dad apologized for his son's behavior, but then there's still the entitled mother. You see, we also had guitar lessons together, and on our way there she said, "So you said my dear stabbed you to my man?" Me, yes, because he did. My child would never do that. I could see his ugly face smiling, thinking it was my defeat. Well, he did. Do you want to see the scars? So I showed her. Maybe he did, but why did he? I told her the story. You see, that's the problem. You did have to make it together, you silly fool. Yes, she really said that to an 11 or 12-year-old. No, we didn't. It's quite rude that you first don't listen to the story and then have the audacity to call me a silly fool. Yes, I did say that. I already said I am really mature. You are such a rude child. What would your parents say? They and your man would say, he's right. Obviously angry, she said, "One more word and I'll throw you out of my car." No problem. I have a phone and my parents have a lawyer with whom we could get some real money out of you. We didn't have a lawyer, but she is unreasonable and it was just a threat, a real one. The entitled kid almost started crying again, and she was really, really upset. But oh well, I won. Story 5. This happened a couple of years ago, and I think below is a good remembrance of the event. There probably was more cursing from the lady in question, which wasn't appropriate in a family restaurant, let alone in front of her kids. There's a chain restaurant located next to a strip mall less than 5 minutes away from where I work. I'm often in there, either by myself or with colleagues, and I have had a few "I don't work here" moments. It's usually been from folks wanting to compliment either the food or the servers. I think it comes from me being dressed in business casual, and usually having a quick chat to some of the servers in the dining area as I head to the bar area. I'll tell them politely I'm not a manager here, but Hesh is, and send them off in the right direction. This particular day, I had called into work on a day off and decided to stop for lunch. I was in jeans and a dark blue polo shirt. I spoke briefly to one of the servers and slipped into a stool at the bar. The bar area was pretty quiet, so my beer and food order was taken in a matter of moments. As usual, I got the lunchtime special, unlimited soup and salad with an entree, and being a regular, there was no need to consult the menu. My order was placed and a tall glass of suds in under a minute. The soup and salad station is located to the rear of the restaurant, and you have to walk through the restaurant area to get there. At lunchtime, there is normally only one section of the dining area open, so the easiest path is through the unused one as it's empty. I do what I normally do, head down and get my salad, and then go back for the soup. I didn't hear anything as I went down to the salad bar, but I remember hearing an "excuse me" as I was returning with my bowl. I set that down and head back for my soup. Again, I hear an "excuse me," but I'm not thinking it's addressed to me. I get my soup and bread and head back to the bar. I see ahead of me a woman rising up from a table that's in a third section. I think it's only used when they're really busy or need seating for larger parties, and I see her step out into my path. I move to one side, thinking she's on her way to the salad bar, but she's checking my every move as if she's going in for a tackle. I'm within a few steps of her. She's got a face like she's been chewing a bunch of bees. "What is your problem?" she spits at me. I'm confused. It's my turn to say, "Excuse me. I've been trying to get your attention for over 10 minutes. That would have been pretty hard since I'd probably been there less than 5. "What?" I say out of confusion. "I know you're ignoring me on purpose. I know your problem. You see a single mom with 2 kids and don't want to bother because you'll have no tip." I try to utter those famous words, but she's on a roll. "I've been there for over 10 minutes, and none of you lazy monkeys have even come over and given us silverware, or even offered us drinks. And you ignore me. On purpose. And don't say you didn't hear me because I saw you turn your head away from me." As she's taking in more air, I say it. "Look, I don't work here." And she's back. "Don't give me that nonsense. You just decided to put on the uniform and serve people food? I'm going to have your job for this. Who's in charge round here?" At that moment, the duty manager appears and addresses me by name and asks what the problem is. And before I can speak, she's off again wearing a fake grin. "Well, you don't work here, yet your boss knows your name." She turns to the manager. "This brat here has treated me very badly. He's been rude and ignored me over a dozen times. He thinks because I'm a single mom, I'm not worth his time. Probably the same as the rest of your monkeys. I'm a paying customer of your joke of a restaurant, and your staff have left me and my kids sitting without even a hi. You need to fire that jerk there, and I expect that you better take care of me and my kids. I am not paying for anything after the way I have been treated. I want both of your names, as well as I am going to make sure that your big bosses know what is going on here. And if you don't fire that jerk right now, I am going to make sure that they do, and they will probably fire you too." "Okay, ma'am," says the manager. "Here's my card," and hands her his business card. She looks at me. "Your name?" she says in a way that the jerk is silent. She doesn't have a pen, but the manager hands her one. Of course, she asks me to spell it out, savoring each letter. "I have to do my job here, ma'am, and I need to establish facts. And could you please watch the color of your language? Let's start at where you are sitting." She points back to one of the large tables where 2 kids around 8-10 are sitting. "We haven't even been given drinks or silverware yet, and we've—" He cuts her off. "If I'm to sort this out, I need to speak to the person who sat you and find out why you weren't assigned a server. What you need to be doing," she says in a sing-song voice, "is firing this jerk. Ma'am, please work on this with me. I am trying to establish facts for your complaint." "Nonsense. I know well what you're doing. You're trying to save yourself and probably his too. I want to see this jerk fired in front of everyone here so you can't. Please, ma'am, could you stop using profanity? There are families in here, says the manager. I notice that the regular noise of the restaurant is not at its usual level. I look over to the actual dining area, and we certainly have most of its attention. She points at me and starts to speak. Are you going to? The manager holds up a hand. Ma'am, please understand this one thing. I cannot fire guests. That just pissed her off even more. What kind of nonsense are you trying to pull here? This jerk is wearing your restaurant's uniform and running around with food in his hands. Is this what you? The manager has had enough. Ma'am, please stop. Ma'am, will you please take a good look at the gentleman? She looks at me. The manager goes on. He's wearing a blue shirt and jeans. Our uniform is black shirt with our logo and black pants, and you'll also notice he is not wearing an apron, which all of our servers wear while on duty. And if you take a good look down to the end of the restaurant, you will see where the self-serve bar is. That is why this gentleman is carrying what is probably now cold soup. She's staring at me, looking me up and down, and then looking around, probably trying to see if what she's hearing is true. There's a lot I can and can't do to and for guests, and as I said, it is not in my power to fire them. I can make them leave if they are disrupting other guests or staff or causing problems for the restaurant. You fall into the latter. I think she's about to speak again, but the manager gets in first. I can also call the police to assist me, so may I suggest that you gather up your kids and leave. If you do wish to take this further, the website address is on my card, and you will find all of our corporate contact information. The exit is this way. I wait until they are out of my path and return to the bar, and I get a few questions on what happened. I answered them the same way. She thought I worked there. The manager came to see me once he had seen her drive out of their lot, and apologized for not being there sooner. I was in the cooler and didn't get the code Karen over the radio. He said he'd have to write a report about the incident, and asked if I would give my contact details, which I did. I did tell him that there was no need to do that on my account, but he said it was policy to do so. The lady did contact corporate as I got a phone call from some lady asking to give my version of events, although I have no idea what tale she told them, or even if they took any action against her. The restaurant sent in the report along with CCTV that recorded the incident, and about 2 weeks later, I got a letter from corporate thanking me for my cooperation and a $50 gift card. Story 6. Forgive me, but this happened a few years back and part of the conversation is blurry, but this is more or less a fairly short story. I used to volunteer my time for my times in the ambulance corps as one of our EMTs. We have 2 different football leagues in town. We have a high school team that gave us their schedule, and we had a rig on scene more so for the larger crowds, and we have a guest little league would be the right term. A town league that consisted of kids aged 6-13 that did not give us their schedule because of smaller crowds, and one of the parents of the kids was a doctor and volunteered his time and attended all games. Not sure if it was legal and all but town octet. So no truck is on scene. Should also note our response time to the field was never more than 3 minutes due to proximity, unless we are out on another job. So about 3 years on a Saturday afternoon, we get dispatched to the football field for an injured child at the game. Me and my partner hop in the truck and get ready to leave. As we are about to call into service, dispatch radios us with an update saying that the child is now unresponsive and unsure of breathing status, so we go in with all lights and sirens on. Now, the football field is located on the high school property and is fenced off on all sides. But first responders have a designated entrance that we all use for quick and easy access. We arrive at the gate to find a minivan parked right in front and enter the entitled parent. Me over truck's intercom. Entitled parent, we need you to move your vehicle, you're blocking our entrance. Entitled parent, I'm sorry, but there is no parking and my son is playing. Well, I'm sorry, but we got an emergency to respond to. Well, can't you just park here and bring them over here? Sorry, but we need to get in. At this point, I could see it's going nowhere, and you have other kids and parents that are attending the game screaming at this entitled parent, and the police ask us to back off. While this is going on, I step out and run over to the field carrying our response bag, which weighs about 40 pounds. As I walk onto the field, the crowd roars with joy and clapping. The doctor that's always there waves me down to come over and help with the child. Thankfully, the kid was fine and just got the wind knocked out of him. Turns out, one of the parents in the stands called and said the kid was unresponsive, which happens more often than you think. About a minute later, my partner rolls up onto the field with the ambulance, and we load the kid onto our stretcher and start leaving for the hospital with the kid and mom. Now, as we are leaving and exiting the gate, I see the entitled parent with police, and I see her minivan is dented in, and she is screaming at the officers. One is taking it all to the face, and the other is just sitting there writing a ticket. Right before we get to the hospital, we hear the officers call out that they are cleared and 5 issued and a summons. Unfortunately, I don't know what that entails or what the results were, but my partner told me that he backed up in our truck, and the police used their cruisers to push the entitled parent out of the way to give us access and do our job. Long story short, don't block emergency access points of any kind. Please and thank you for listening to my story.